You talking shit about you. You know, I know we've definitely had our issue, but it became because of her. Because of this, because of her. I knew you before I knew her. Is all I'm saying. I really became more around like watching her because of him. And that's just the truth. But all I'm saying is, man, y'all, that snake, it'd be right there at your feet. And you.
Welcome to Coast AM's YouTube channel. I'm George Norrie. Like, share, and subscribe. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and coasttocoastam.com. Become a Coast Insider for ad-free access to thousands of shows you'll really enjoy. Are there visitors from other realms attempting to help preserve our planet? If so, why? In a moment, the Keepers. Jim Sparks, our guest. Linda Moulton Howe will join us for this hour on Coast to Coast AM. We're going to be talking tonight with Jim Sparks. He was raised in Florida with memories of a childhood filled with very strange and interesting creatures. However, his childhood was dwarfed by the vastness of space and dimensions that his abductors had exposed to him. Jim differs from most abductees in that he has near total recall of his experiences with beings from other regions and dimensions of space and time. Jim was 34 when his experiences with otherworldly beings really started. Now, 18 years later, Sparks has moved from resistor to cooperator and is sharing his experiences with others. In his book we're talking about, Jim gives us firsthand reports of a decade of ET encounters along with messages for humanity. Jim Sparks. Hey, Jim.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to Jim, I'm bringing in this hour Linda Moulton Howe from earthfiles.com and our investigative. She wrote the prologue book, Keepers. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Hi, George. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
It's great to be here with both of you on this extremely, I think, important book, important abduction syndrome event that I remember, George, the first time I met Jim back in 1995 at a conference. And the thing that impressed me was that he had had such a normal life until he was 34 years old. And then it was like he walked through land. Nothing has. Tonight, if you can get a sense from Jim about just how normal his life was up to age 34, it's all conscious.
And Jim, now your name, because Linda, back then during that time period, he had a different name, right?
Jim Sparacina.
Vince?
It's Vincent Jim, and Jim Sparks is the pen name, and that's just the name that I've used when I started writing.
Okay, and you prefer to be called Jim tonight?
Oh,
Jim?
Sure, yeah. Okay. In fact, the way it worked with me and my family background, my father's name was Vincent, and they put that on the birth certificate, and my mother's father's name, which was my grandfather on my mother's side, his name was Jim or Jimmy. So as a child, out of respect, of course, they named me Vincent on the birth certificate, but they called me Jimmy ever since I was a baby, or Jim. So yeah, Jim.
The Keepers, and let me tell you, you've got the foreword by the late Dr. John Mack, and of course, you've got Linda Moulton Howe writing the prologue. Linda and Jim, how did you two come together where you would prologue for the Keepers?
Well, I've noticed.
Body. I'm just trying to get the audio just right. Basically, I got this is we're going to be going through MSL 2658 MR. That's the soul day, the Mars soul day. This would have been on day 2658 when the rover took these images. And so right now, I'm just trying to get the audio right because I really don't want to stream it from my iPad. I just want
all of his experiences with beings from other regions.
I just basically. So I'm restarting Air Server. Sometimes I've found that restarting the product that I use, which is called Air Server, and I am on the verge of maybe buying an actual license for it. So far, it's been the most solid piece of software. And, you know, I have been testing it thoroughly. So out of all of the different pieces of software I'd fuck with, it would be this one. What I've been having a problem with has been the internet this morning. I'm just making sure here because it seems like I flipped over to, there's a couple different Wi-Fi's here. So y'all give me a second. Let me just make sure I can actually traverse the net now. They may have fixed whatever blip that was. It looks like they did. All right, so listen, I'm about to flip over and it may blip for a second, but I have to do that because I have to be on the same network, as the devices have to be on the same network in order for me to cast. And I would much prefer my devices to be on a private network than a public network, especially when I'm casting data. But that's a security thing. So just give me a second. I'm about to blip. Okay. Hopefully we are coming back. Hopefully we're coming back. Let me see if I have audio here. And it looks like I do. Okay, cool. Hey, good morning, Red Wings. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Happy freaking, what is today? The 2nd? Was it Tuesday? Like, it's been so crazy these last few days, you know? So anyway, is because I have a Windows device running Windows 11, which I, you know, am still very much so getting used to. But I have an iPad Pro. I have this new iPad Pro that I bought that I love. Okay, I absolutely fucking love it. I have not bought or had an iPad in some years, actually. Now, right now, I'm screen mirroring over to Air Server. Air Server's listening on the same network. I should be able to switch over or start casting here. But again, this morning, there's been like some really weird going on. Little concerned about let's stay on the guest network, shall we? Yeah, I don't know what they got going on with the I don't know what they got going on with the resident one, but yeah, okay, I'm good on that. Whatever. All right, let's cast here. All right. So basically, Air Server it listens off, you know, based off port. And from the iPad, you'd go into your screen mirroring function, right? And then you cast it out. And this is air casting, but there's also other types of casting like Google casting. You got mirror casting. There's different types of casting, so to speak. And you may sometimes see these sorts of logos. In YouTube, sometimes you'll see like a logo where you could cast or project an image. It's gotten pretty good now. You can even cast wirelessly. I've been known to cast from my laptop, my Windows, even my iPad to my TV like it ain't shit. Like that just is how things run, you know. And not only can you cast and display your entire screen if you wanted, you could also just cast and display certain things on your screen. So yeah, just keep in mind. I know that I'm an advanced user. I do things a little bit differently, and I am an advanced user. So sometimes following something that I do may not necessarily be a good idea for others. Because shit, even I have been caught up, okay, in all sorts of crazy shit. But listen, enough about that. Enough about me. You know, I may do a video on Belarus and Poland actually later today. Kind of concerned with it. Good to see you, Red Wings. Good. Get your morning going. You know, get your coffee or tea. I know it's 3:40 in the morning, Central Standard Time. These are the type of hours I love, you know. But that's for another day. Now, on top of the fact that I am casting right now to Air Server, I also, in a lot of these lives, you'll find when I'm doing these Mars anomaly hunting lives is what I call them, because that is what I'm doing. I may be playing something in the background instead of talking. It just depends on how I feel. But listen, y'all know I love Coast to Coast AM. Okay. I've been a fan of Coast to Coast AM since Coast to Coast AM was with Art Bell. I was a, 13, 14, 15-year-old child listening to this shit. Okay. I kid you not, in the middle of the night too. Like it came on at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. On some nights, it'd be later than others. Some nights earlier than others. It would really like depend on the show and when Art Bell would like get shit started, but guaranteed always on an AM station. And, we're talking probably the most famous Coast to Coast show was the one where the guy called in from Area 51. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that particular one, but it's interesting. But I'm a weird bitch anyway, and I'm okay with that. Okay. So speaking of weird shit, all right, as you guys know, I have really taken a liking to what we call anomaly hunting. I keep that muted for right now. Taking a real liking to anomaly hunting. And why is this on? Okay, there we go. And basically, when I say that, I'm talking about images that are coming down from the rovers. Okay, from the rovers from Mars. All right, we've got a couple of rovers on Mars currently. The latest one is the Perseverance, aka affectionately nicknamed Percy. And you can definitely tell the difference in the photo quality that's coming back from images from Perseverance versus Curiosity, Opportunity. Some of these other rovers that have been to Mars, some of these rovers have different jobs. We're now sending rovers from other countries. I heard China's sending one. We've got satellites that are over Mars. We've got the MRO. We've got Indian satellites. And guys, we've even had active volcanic activity. It's Olympus Mons, I believe is the name, is the largest, 16-mile high. It's the largest volcano in the entire, galaxy, I guess they would say, right? But Mars, there's just so much that has been talked about through the years regarding Mars. And believe me, We are not just sending all these machines and spending all this money, okay, to drive these machines around, to take photos and video and audio, by the way. Oh, yeah, there's audio, just for the fun of it, okay? When are y'all going to wake up on that? That is the question. I get into it with my kids a lot, especially one of them, because he's always like, Mom, it's just a rock. And it's like, dude, if you say that one more time, you know, yeah. Oh, yeah. Red Wings. Oh, yes, yes. And safety travels to you on. I love truck drivers. It's a family thing. There's an actual story that could be told from my family regarding a very weird incident during the first Iraq War, and some things that were being carried in the back of a truck. Top secret stuff, but not a story that I can really tell. But listen, in regards to these images, there's a few images that I personally I know I have been going through some of these images for a few years, actually. There is one in particular, okay, this one in particular. This one is a Gigapan that I've been scanning through for some years. And look, you can even tell I'm not lying. There's my comment from 2019. And man, I look back at that comment that I left in 2019 regarding this Gigapan, and here it is, February 2nd, 2022. And damn, let's see, that's 2021. That's almost 3 years ago. And I can promise you that the more that you go through these, the more you start to see, and then you do start putting things together, and I would say be real careful doing that, right? But there are, what's the word I'm looking for? Common denominators, for sure. Right? There's some commonalities that I find as I go through these images. And this is one of the images, again, that I've been going through for a few years. And I can assure you I was going through this image long before 2019 as well. I probably just commented during that time. But this one in particular, made by Rhea Mills. This is the rock nest area of Mars. This was taken by Curiosity. And this was taken on, if you do a search for skeletal horse, then you'll find this image. And this is what we call a gigapan. And a gigapan is basically an image that is stitched together by multiple images. So I don't know exactly how many images are in this particular one, but I can tell you Gigapan stitch was used to stitch the images together. This is, let's see, one column by 3 rows. Okay. Hold on. It took 2 minutes to put this together. So I'm not sure how they stitched this. This seems to indicate that if it's 58 seconds per picture and it took 2 hours and 55 minutes to stitch that picture together, it's possible that there is 307,200 photos that have been stitched together to make this photo. So I may not be looking at those details correct. I think I am, but it's always something that can be verified. The reason, and I'll tell you, the first thing that's going to get anybody's attention when they see this photo is going to be this. Every time. Every time. But I promise you
that's not what it really is in the photo. And as you start to go through these photos, you start to see these commonalities and these things that just don't even make like visual sense. And I know that what you're seeing looks like a bird, right? Okay. Well, let me show you what I'm seeing after looking at this image for a few years. And I absolutely love this this tool here. I've been learning a lot about Photoshop and tools and stuff like that. But there is a way to change the color using a fill. Oh, and the magnifier's wonderful. Let me tell you. There's also, not only is there a magnifier, okay, for your browser to look at these images, and we've talked about this before, there's also a magnifier specifically built in. But again, what I think it almost looks like the beak of a bird, right? NASA wants us to think that. Hey, Queen, baby, how are you? I'm up early, girl. Them chicken and dumplings knocked my ass right on out last night. But I'm going to just do a real quick draw of what I see. I think there's a lot of optical illusions. And we did just, I kid you not, we just exposed NASA not even 2.5, 3 weeks or so ago of literally obfuscating, like obviously photoshopping a photo that they released to the world. I think somebody else, and then, you know, in some of the messages that I have received, the reason why we basically, there's two soul days. Curiosity rover, Sol 1506, Sol 1507. That's the days. Okay, that's how it's counted. So like here we'd say 365 days. Well, we're on day 1506 and 1507. And these images were taken of what appears to be a mural or a drawing or a painting. And we have talked about this on this channel. And what was insane was that weeks, months, maybe even years after I had even first discovered that photo, because that was not the first time that I had seen that photo before. We discovered there was another version of it by accident. And then we went and checked NASA's raw images, and it was like, oh, wow, okay. And what's crazy, it's good for so many reasons. I'm grateful to the person that allowed the original photo to leak. Thank you. Because it gives us a real true view. And I believe that particular photo may be one of the greatest finds in space science, period. We're talking about verification of another civilization, okay? Now, let me, I'm trying to get my, I want white text, but this isn't going to be too easy, is it? Hold on. It's not even annotating for me. Hold on, y'all. Let's try this again here. I wonder why that's doing that. This is also too what I love about screenshots. You can trace over stuff and then, you know, turn it off so that you can actually see. Let me try it this way then. It's kind of some bullshit, but whatever. Y'all give me just 1 second. Hold on. I'm going to reshare I mean, let me make sure I'm on the same network again too, because we have been having some, yeah, okay. We've been having some network issues that are strange as fuck. Okay. Frankly, would really rather move these to a folder. Give me just a second. I'm gonna Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see if we can annotate it now. And honestly, I was trying to unshare my screen then, but that's okay. Whatever. There's no pussies or anything. Where's my edit tool at? There we go. Let's try to annotate this way. Maybe it'll let me. No, it's still not. Isn't that weird? It's like my pencil is, even my finger is like not even responding. Hold on. Maybe I do need to like stop my sharing and reshare. And hold on, y'all. Hey, Leonard, how you doing? Give me a sec, y'all. Let me try to restart this air server.
What Jim has had first-hand conscious experience with what he calls
Yeah, you know how it is, y'all. They'll be like, oh, we caught her. No, you ain't caught me.
The energy that you have felt off of those.
We good.
And something that I still feel is one of the most fascinating technology discussions that I've ever had. And that is your seeing the demonstration of them being able to extend themselves in only percentages.
That's the shit that I'm talking about, though. I'm an advanced user, and even it can happen to me. But yeah, just looking. Yeah, my baby made a nice little project. And of course, I took a screenshot of that. And
their creators,
and of course, some Mars images that I've actually been going through that I haven't even showed you guys
4 feet
yet.
or more, instead of being 3 feet, close to 5 feet, in some cases taller. Now,
if it doesn't let me do it this way, then I'm going to bring in Photoshop.
As you mentioned, as I said, what I call the true aliens or the true grays in that particular species.
Give me just a second.
They are taller. Their heads are bigger than ours. They're bigger than normal, but they're not extra large as the little beings. Their eyes are bigger than ours, but not nearly as big as those huge teardrop eyes as the worker beings, which I've surmised those huge teardrop eyes.
Hey, Leonard, how you doing, babe?
I'm believing that it absorbs energy, and that's how it works or operates to power itself. Either be any kind of stimuli, be it light, be it movement. But with that being said, back to the grays, their skin is leather-like. Their mouths are thin. Their chins are pointy, but not quite as pointy as the little worker beings. But their skin is leather-like in texture. But you can see that
is so weird. It's like I need to reboot my iPad or
but it's not so obvious at first. It took many months and into years for me to start to easily, after a while, distinguish the difference from one individual to the other. So they are, you can distinguish the difference, and they are biological. They are alive.
And they don't wear uniforms, Jim?
No. They almost look as if they're naked.
Yeah.
And for George, for the best way I can describe it, as far as genitals are concerned, you don't see any genitals, either male nor female. There's nothing there but one gets, and I have throughout all the years, and to the sex aspect of it.
Yeah, there's something up with my iPad.
That
my actual iPad
that work with people are male.
So I'm going to reboot it.
I come across
even in Photoshop,
no
I can't.
The feminine, by the way she looks, and I say she, and of course the way she behaves.
The more you test stuff,
appear to have no emotions. But however, over time, I've
the more you find things. So in the interim,
have emotions, but it's a different form of emotions, and it's long-term thinking emotions. So they don't respond emotionally every few seconds as we do as human beings. So their emotions are long term. There seems to be
This
a
is
sense
the
of humor.
Gigapan that I'm going over today.
Cynical. These are beings that do not like to answer questions. They do not respond to questions, and and if they do, they usually answer ambiguously.
And one thing to note too is that, so I told you about 1506 and 1507, right? But
human beings for thousands of years.
Not only do I think 1506 and 1507 is probably the most amazing photo or find in space history. I also think this photo, along with the skeletal horse photo, so those are the three photos that I particularly study. Okay, there's others that I go through from time to time, and I'll go over them and keep going over them, but not like these three photos in particular. Now this one, so the skeletal horse remain one, okay, again, you can see I got that shit favorited, right? Again, I'm going to just drop a link to it, to this Gigapan. If you just feel like going through it yourself, you can do it on your laptop, your iPad, whatever. But again, I can't draw what I'm seeing right now because I'm rebooting my iPad, but I will. But I can assure you that's not a bird. I think that what we're seeing is there's the mouth right there, and it's in the shape of a frown. And it's got that weird line thing going on, okay? And I don't know if that's an ear or an eye, because one other strange thing about some of these creatures I have found has been that they have one eye bigger than the other. I don't know how to describe or explain that. I have been finding crustacean-looking creatures. I've been finding things that look like snails, things that look like owls, humanoid looking creatures. And I mean, here's a really amazing part of this photo. Just look at that for just a second. What does that look like to you? I'm talking about right here where my mouse is. Sure, yeah, I know that's a rock, okay? I know that's not a creature, but are you paying attention to where the rock is? It is in motion. That is not sitting anywhere. That is something that's like being thrown through the air or some shit. Because it's not like it's sitting on the back rock back here. But I'm telling you, in this particular photo, there is thousands of little Martian creatures in this photo. Now, when I first started looking at this photo, I thought that I only seen maybe 5 or 6, 8 creatures. And then the more that I looked at it, and the more that I got to understand just what is considered normal on Mars, I became to really see way more. I don't know if what we're looking at here is let's say, and this has been a theory of mine for a while, tsunami. There was that, again, Olympus Mons, the 16 miles high volcano, the largest in the galaxy, is on Mars. Did it erupt? Was there a tsunami? Are we looking at a tsunami of like rocks and mud and dead creatures and all this? I mean, if you just look out, right? Just look out as far as your eye can see, because you can see miles out. And some of these Gigapans, again, I believe this is over 300,000 images that have been stitched together. Water has been found. We have found water in a lot of these photos. And I'm telling you, there are some things, especially like being a techie, that when like Photoshop is being used and shit. And I can confirm it. And again, we just exposed NASA a week or two ago, where we found in 1506 and 1507 There was 2 different versions of this photo. And in one of these versions, you can see little creatures. And in the other one, it's clearly photoshopped. And we're talking about NASA taking literal copy and pasting of sand and pasting it over, square block methods, like not giving a single solitary fuck, okay? Like it's like putting it through a chopper, a blender or some shit, okay? So this is one of my favorites to look at, and I did drop the link for this one. 1506 and 1507. I've dropped that link 1,000 times. I'm not going to go hunt that down right this second because I want to go through 2658, which is another favorite of mine. They do, Leonard. It's really painful. And you can tell when they're like photoshopping shit. It's so obvious. And what's amazing about this particular photo, the first thing that ever caught my attention about this particular photo, okay? And let me unmark everything. If you're a lover of gigamacro, Gigapan and gigamacro, same thing. These are images stitched together. It's just, I think that on Gigapan, it's a little bit smoother. And I think that's because of the code that they've got. But the first thing that I ever seen on this photo that got my attention, and if you get tired of coming in a photo and you see all of these marks and you want to get rid of them just so you can look at the photo, hit the pencil, or not the pencil, hit the ellipsis, and then uncheck the show hide all, and it'll remove all of that. If you want to bring it back, you can just add it back. You can also add private entries. Like I go through a lot of Joe White, Art Aliens, Gigapans. He's the master at it by far. Shout out to Joe White with Art Alien TV. Legend. Okay. Absolute legend, period. But I've heard other names through him before. And one of them that I've heard has been this Nevil Thompson individual. And I've heard him mention his name before. And a lot of times if you trust one's work, right, and if they say a name or something like that, then it makes you feel more comfortable in trusting that, other person's work that they're mentioning. I've even heard him say like Martine Graney. I've seen her name or his name on a lot of photos. But what caught my initial attention in this photo, okay? The very first thing I seen was this, for one, okay? That was the first thing that caught my attention. All right. It would be different if it was like one of them, but no, this is 2 of them. And I think potentially that could be the feet of a turtle-like animal. And I believe that this is that animal. And I see a face and everything, but again, I've not traced this out yet. But here's one of the problems I'm having. I have been trying to download these Gigapans, okay? And I found a Python script to do it, but I'm having some problems. Actually, I'm having some syntax errors. And actually, I think I got the syntax proper. I figured out how to get the syntax proper, but when I run the Python script, it's not actually doing anything. I have a thread open in my process manager, so I don't know. But so that was the first thing that caught my attention. Like, okay, that's some weird ass shit. Not to mention, I'm seeing other weird ass shit. Okay. See like 2 little eyes right there, that M shape, that owl-faced shape that we've talked about. But what got me was this. It was this. I'm gonna let your eyes settle for a second. And while your eyes are settling, I'm gonna bring up something. And this is why I want to download the entire Gigapan. I want to be able to upload and ingest that Gigapan, if technically possible, into Photoshop where I can ongoingly trace over these images and things that I'm finding in these photos, so I could have one solid photo of me tracing over this, instead of having to do it in sections, just of these 3 images only. I don't want a shitload of them. I just want these 3. So I've gotten to the point where I've even, I found, you know, if you go like into, you can go, I'm not going to do it here now, but you can go like into the properties of Chrome or whatever. And you can see all of the images that are actually part of the structure of these Gigapans, to be honest with you. Let's see here. Hold on. They just pretend it's in space. You think I think this stuff is real. It's outside of the crater they have us living in. You know, hey, there's been a lot of crazy, interesting thoughts. And I don't think that we can underestimate or, you know, think any of that or think against any of that, in all honesty. So yeah, this when I seen this one day, I knew that this image was just as special as 1506 and 1507. And of course the skeletal remain one, but this one even just as much, because I'm looking at what I know is 3 little Martian little men, possibly 4. But there's just something really weird that I also noticed in these images where you may see like that owl face, like this one, for example. You may see this replicated on like what they would call a rock 100 times. And I don't know if that's the naturality of Mars or if NASA's doing that to these photos. But now that we've got one that we know leaked, that's not photoshopped, was actually leaked, it goes back to being the fact that there does seem to be some kind of weird indication that there, I mean, like, it's almost like the human body having 4 faces, if you get what I'm saying. That's kind of like what I'm sort of saying. But in this photo, there's clearly this little Martian man, okay, and there's clearly one right here too, and you can actually see it holding this long item. And if you follow this up and you look real close, you can see that it's an axe. You can actually see where it's jointed together. But anyway, I've been working through my little Adobe, right? Becoming familiar with Adobe. And this has been just some of my work so far. One of the things, again, that I have noticed, it's not all the time, but there does seem to be one eye that's bigger than the other, and their mouths seem to have a frown. But this all comes from 1506 and 1507. This is, I call it the Martian blockhead species. It has like these crab claw hands. Again, there's a lot of like crustacean looking things. And again, guys, you cannot just look at this stuff and say, nah, that's not real. That can never be real. Blase this. You've never seen anything like this. So you don't know what's real and what's not real. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible because you don't know what to expect. But all I can do is just trace out and trace over the colors. And what I really love about what I'm learning in the annotating feature is that I can take the little fill button And if I drag that over a piece of the photo, it will give me that exact color so that I can then trace over with that exact color. I'm not trying to edit these images. I just want to bring out more of what is in these images. And the only way I know to do that right now is, without editing them, is just to straight trace over them. And by the way, this image comes from the photo that was leaked. And that's what's beautiful about it. It's like we got this photo, of the same Martian day, one where we can clearly see NASA has photoshopped crazy over it. We got entire blocks of rocks missing, boulders just gone. Okay. It's so blatant. But this is one of these little creatures. I don't know how to explain this, but I know that it also has a frown. It's like two of them. One of them with this little crab claw that it sits on top of this other weird blockhead creature that has two eyes, one bigger than the other, a frown on the face, and this thing that extends off of it. Okay. And this is some more of the tracing that I'm talking about. Now, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to trace this on one of the larger Gigapans and just, do it over a period of years and just save a copy? And it just keeps saving it and saving it and saving it as you move along. Then eventually you will have traced the whole thing. But this is another version of an image, one that I find particularly interesting for the reasons that I have. And I know some of this shit doesn't make any sort of sense to the eye. I understand that. But this is what it is. And when you get to like tracing over some of this stuff, you get to seeing, like, to me, this is some sort of creature. One eye is bigger than the other, and there's some sort of weird snout thing coming out of it. Just like back here, same thing. Some of these things even look like little blobs. But this is the infamous image that I'm talking about. This was my original trace over this one here. Because see, in this photo, I believe we're looking at three little Martian men. You've got one right here. You've got one right here. And then you've got one right here. And what's crazy is the way that these little things look. They're on that painting, that mural painting in 1506 and 1507, in the dead middle. You can, and it's hard to see it out, but I'm still working to even trace that out. I'll show you that in a minute. You can actually see, this being that seems to have like two big ass eyes, but it reminds me almost of that. Like it could be that. And again, I see three beings, possibly four. And this was my first initial trace. So yes, it's a rough one, okay? But this is how I originally do it. I just trace over the actual image itself. And when I learned that you could do it using the same color, then I started doing that. And I think we all learn as we go, right? But I absolutely, it's like, I don't know if it's, because this is definitely an axe, okay? But I don't know if this one down here, like, because you can see something else right here. If you look close in the center right here, I can't tell if it's eyes, or if it's like holding a message with two letters. It almost looks like two letters or something. And it definitely looks burned out from NASA's imaging software. Hey, Emperor Throne, our solar system is in the suburbs of the universe. It's like a Speedway gas station, shop and go. Oh, yeah. One thing that you guys, if you ever get an opportunity to check out, you should check out this video that that I did a few weeks ago too about jellyfish in space. Amazing. But and the question is, did we do it, or is that just in fact how it is, that there are creatures that also live in space? But there's an image, and this was taken back in the 80s, 90s when we're talking VHS film, and now current films, where there seems to be some sort of jellyfish that's, it pulsates electricity or whatnot. And it seems like when there's thunderstorms on Earth, that electricity around those thunderstorms is a concern for them. But there's this image of what appears to be millions of them. There was a flash of lightning and millions of them just take off. And it's absolutely amazing. But man, I could go all day on that shit. It looks, yes, it does look like an axe. Yes. And if you actually just look at the image itself without my tracing over it, you can actually see where the bottom part is sitting inside. You can see it. You could see it carved out and everything. You could clearly see it's an axe. Clearly. It is so obvious. But one day we'll go through and show that jellyfish video again, because it's pretty amazing. NASA did a science experiment back in the 80s. I believe it was the 90s actually, and took some jellyfish to space just to see what would be the repercussions of that. And mostly they didn't know up from down, right from left, all that sort of a thing. But the question is, did you release them into space? Because there's also an astronaut who videotaped what appeared to be a snake swimming in space, following the shuttle. And he was on the Columbia shuttle, I believe, or was it the space station? I can't remember which one, but following the shuttle. And for some reason, every time those types of videos, like when I do that type of content, man, I will get strange content ID strikes, but then they'll release them. Or they're easily fightable. They just want to hem me up. And I'm talking like the fakest of the most fakest names. It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. But anyway, this is on the leaked photo of 1506 and 1507 of Mars. And what you can see appears to be a little humanoid being with a beak-like nose. One eye's larger than the other. You can see its little arm, its neck, its shoulder, its arm as it hangs and holds itself up as it looks up at the rover. It looks like it has almost like a blue or a green hand. But keep in mind, guys, this isn't the first time that I've seen an object like this. That's what makes doing this so much fun, because it's like after doing it for so long, you run up on something like this, and you're like, hold up, I've seen something else like that before. So that's why I started marking these things so that I could come back later. But I'm currently working on tracing this out. And it's got a nice little bulky little shoulder, doesn't it? It's got a little muscular looking shoulder, but there is a humanoid. There's a video done by Art Alien TV by Joe White, a humanoid mummy. And again, it matches up with one of the drawings on that mural, along with the lizard man. The reason why that painting is so important for 1506 and 1507 is that we've been able to at least match up 3 of those beings to actual other photos that have been published by NASA. So if you come to me and say you want to see the NASA photos, then just know that's where all these are coming from. But this is the photo I'm talking about. This is just my 5. She was in Photoshop doing some, can't remember what they call it, vignettes or something like that. But this is the photo, and it's very clear that you can clearly see there's two creatures sitting here, regardless of whatever, but rocks don't have little legs with little white looking sock things on them, okay? They don't have two eyes. One eye seems to be larger than the other. One eye actually seems to even hang lower, okay? You can see the curved, all right? And then you've got this little buddy over here with three eyes, which seems to match this part of this drawing. Then there's this part of the drawing, this little Bart Simpson looking character. And what's interesting is if you really trace this out, you'll see the hands are like crab claws. Where are we seeing that at? But then you got the little lizard man, little Bart Simpson, one eye is bigger than the other. I can actually, and I believe there's an image I'm going to show you here in a second where that matches up perfectly. So we got a match on that. We've got a match on the block man. I call him the Martian block face with the thing that hangs out to the side of it. I don't know why it does that, but I believe that we most definitely have captured images of that. Then you've got, again, this three-eyed weird thing, which I believe matches up perfectly with this little three-eyed little thing, which is there's other little three-eyed little creatures that look like it also. And then you've got this really strange triangular headed one. And it has like this red neck, red chest thing going on. And then, of course, you see its arm come out and its arm's really long with crab claws. And you can see this in both of these images. Like this one here, Lizard Man has a hand that looks like a crab claw. And this triangular headed dude has a hand that looks like a crab claw. And so if you look really close, you have to actually just kind of keep looking back at this photo. But if you look right here where the mouse is, that is the image I was talking about. Where to me, that looks almost burnt out by NASA. I don't know, but it looks almost like something wearing like a hat or some blonde hair, two big eyes, and what looks to be like a mustache. And remember that humanoid mummy thing? And then I start thinking about this, right? Big nose, big eyes. It looks like it has a mustache. It looks like it could have like a hat on or some blonde curly hair or something. And then I'm looking at this like, try tracing that out and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I think that this is not 4 creatures, but it's actually 5. Now that I've had even more time to study, maybe this one's just shorter. I don't know. But I don't know if this is trying to represent to us what their hierarchy is. Their civilization hierarchy. Don't know yet. But again, that's why I feel like this image is so important. And what's so cool about it too is that you can see colors come through on this. And this again is the image I'm referring to, 1506, 1507. This again was stitched together by Art Alien TV by Joe White. This is the image that was leaked. So there's a leaked version of this, and then there's a version of this image in which NASA released it, and it is clearly photoshopped like crazy. And I could go on forever about this particular, whatever you want to call it, a rock. It almost looks like a boat with a face on it. But there's a couple other images in other places where rovers have caught similar looking things. I don't think this is a rock at all, but you can clearly see there, you've got something on the side of this so-called whatever, Martian whatever, mock, so I don't want to call it a rock, that clearly looks drawn or painted on. There's various colors going through this image. You can see it. You can even see to the right of it. Look at the triangle. There's nothing in nature that's going to do this. Not to mention the fact we've got these creatures just sitting here. And this is, guys, this right here is some of the more limited quality stuff that I've got. Hey, just my 5. So this is just the quick trace. Again, I haven't like really traced over it yet. There's the lizard man I was telling you guys about. I believe in match character here. But amazingly, this lizard creature was caught recently, actually. I believe this was caught, was it the Curiosity? Or but I know this is was caught on Sol 1408. And if you do a search for Sol 1408 in a Google browser, you'll typically come up with that Gigapan or Gigamacro pretty relatively up at the top. Now, this was another tracing that I did over. This one comes from Sol 1405. And you'll notice another thing that I like to do is when I look at things like this is Sol 1408. Okay, well, what was going on Sol 1410? Which meaning, what was going on 2 days later? Well, was the rover still in the same place? Did anything move from, day 1408 to day 1410? Or are the items still in the same place? Like, those are the sorts of things that I'd be looking for. But this is another very interesting trace image that I did. It's really strange, to say the least. It seems to be like some sort of like lizard dragon-like creature. It's really weird. And one eye is bigger than the other. And there's also another little creature to the side of it with like 2 eyes, one bigger than the other, with a frown thing going on. But again, this is when I first started doing this. So I'm going to get better with this with time, for sure. But I think it's going to be really important that I always show like the original before I traced over it. Because I want to be able to go, like original, the traced version, right? Anyway, this is some other version that I did. Of course, I've not really sat down and did a Photoshop copy yet because I was testing around some different products, different tracing products on the iPad. And so far, I got to be honest with you, I like Simple Trace. I like the built-in editor. And I really like the Adobe Photoshop. I really do. I think there's a lot of fluff in it, but I'm absolutely digging it. So it's just a lot to learn. It's a whole learning process. This is probably the best traced copy I've done so far, but it's still not finished. But you can clearly even see I even traced the crab claw hands. Both of these, the Bart Simpson thing has it, and the neck thing, right? And the creatures up at the top. It's weird. And this is, of course, our little lizard friend. And the other thing I like about Photoshop is being able to put those layers there where you can add a layer and it even brings out the photo more, allowing you to trace more. And then, of course, you can eventually have your final product. But those are just some of the things I've been working on. And I got to talking about that because I rebooted my iPad. So let me see where my iPad is at. But this, again, those were the things that caught my eye of this particular image, of image 2658. And then if you actually start looking, just put yourself in the position of a creature that you see them, you've seen all these machines landing on your planet. It doesn't communicate with you. What would you do? Well, of course, you're going to watch it. And so it's like, as you kind of just sort of like think that way and you start really looking at this stuff, This right here is very obvious to me. It looks like a three-eyed creature of some type. Then there's another creature sitting right here that has like an owl face. There's one sitting right here. There's so many of them in this photo. It's amazing. There's even one where it looks like it's saying hello. I'll when I find it, I'll show you. But it's really better when I trace these out, because a lot of people just look at these and they're just like, I just see a rock. And it's like, man, no, it's not. But there's one, let me see if I can find it real quick, where it looks like the little guy is actually, there he is. He looks like he's actually saying hello. Now, I believe that this is two creatures right here, one right here. And the way that it's defined is very strange, but you can see one eye over here. This eye here looks bigger. But it also seems like, again, it's almost like some of these objects have multiple heads. I don't know how to describe it. Yes, Emperor Throne. Yes. Yes, there is some really good content on that. Project Blue Book is something I would encourage everyone to read. We've actually went through that before. I need to bring that content back out, where, I mean, it goes into detail a little bit about that, but more so from the perspective of the Dulce, New Mexico base that is there, that is ran by aliens, where an actual war broke out once. Over 60 aliens were killed. A couple of men were killed as well. Quite a few, actually. But there's a lot of experiments going on. And there's been some secret video that's come out as well. But when I look at this, okay, I see, you know, this creature with this big ass eye. I see two. I see one here. But of course, that owl-like, triangular-like thing going on over it. But then there's something sticking up. And I don't know if that's its version of its claw hand, or if it's something sticking up with a head. You know, it's hard to tell, but maybe over time, as we trace these things out, they'll become more apparent. But again, you can't expect to understand what you're actually looking at all the time either. It's absolutely impossible, because we just don't know. It's like, even here, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures possibly. There's some really interesting things in this particular photo. Oh, here's another one too. Here's another really interesting one that I'm going to trace out. It's so obvious here. This weird square. This is that block face thing. Sometimes I don't see anything hanging from the side of them, but I mean, even if you look back here, it almost looks like a wrench, but you can clearly see two eyes. You clearly see it. One's bigger than the other, and they have an awkward shape. They look like rocks. Maybe that's because it's just so fucking dry there, you know, deserty, dry. But what's really odd is this thing here. Okay, I still haven't been able to really get my eyes to understand what this is. It almost looks like Alf, his head being pressed together. But yes, I'm planning on tracing this out as well. That is one strange looking, blobby looking thing, ain't it? That's some weird shit going on, let me tell you. Some weird stuff going on. Even sometimes I see shit that looks like little fish. It's like there's no water, but it looks like a fish or something. I don't know. But this is good quality fun and good quality content. And you're also helping the world. You know what I'm saying? The thing about NASA is they don't have enough people in the world to be able to go through all of these images. Look, you can even see things. Look how NASA literally smudged that out. It's so obvious. It looks like a little lizard. I mean, you can see various things up in the hills looking down at the rover. And there's a couple of instances where I have found a lot of photoshopping going on. It's like, so, you know, basically NASA became of this mindset, especially when the rover images started coming back in the millions, that they knew they didn't have enough resources or, you know, to be able to actually go through these images. And so one of these scientists, I heard them, you know, say this, that they were going to release all the images and allow the people to go through them and provide their input, because it allows the citizens of the world, I guess, to feel included. Not to mention it's our tax dollars, okay? Not to mention the fact that they, again, don't have enough resources. And I think that there's been more fruits to that type of labor than there would have ever been with trying to keep all these photos top secret and not just releasing them and letting people do their thing. But this object here is most definitely, I believe, like a little turtle, a big turtle, actually. I think this is a shell of some kind. And I do believe possibly that these are its feet. Again, they do look sort of like crab claws, but again, there's a face here, and you can kind of see it. Hey, just my 5. Hold on. There's something to the left of that. It looks like a primate. And there is some of that going on as well. There is several instances of ape-like looking creatures, dragon lizards. Yes. Like, it's really, really weird. Isn't it just the strangest of things? And that's why I really am enjoying tracing over this stuff. And like, here's another prime example of what I think is like an owl looking object. It's got the frown going on. It's got this eye here. One I don't think we can necessarily see, but it's so obvious, right? This almost looks like a butterfly holding something out. You could see like a caterpillar head or some shit. Who knows? It's the beautiful thing of it all. All right, let me see if my iPad has came back up. And the only thing, though, let me see something really quick, because I think that the Gigapans, there's a difference in, let's see, 2658 Gigapan. Let's take a look. The Gigapans seem a little smoother, I think. Let's see. Now, this is going to be the same image. Again, Nevil Thompson, and he's the one person that stitched this one. This damn photo is over 3 gigs. That's pretty amazing. So I'm trying to gauge the difference here. For one, I don't like how Gigapan, I don't want to have to expand out like that by default. I hate that. It's just, they don't give enough room. But I just want to sort of gauge the blurriness. Like, which one's clearer? they're both about the same, but gigamacro seems just a little smoother though. Let me see. It just, hold on. I locked up. You know me, I put my laptops through a lot. All right, there we go. I look at both. Kind of zoom in here. Now, definitely with Gigapan, you can zoom in a little bit more than you can with gigamacro, which is an interesting thing to know and an important thing to know. And I'm talking, that's pretty significant. So maybe that's why it's a little bit clearer, but barely recognizable. Like there'd be no one of them that I'd pick over the other, basically. But anyway, it's so obvious that is some sort of object. That looks like something sitting, looking at the rover, don't it? Some weird looking shit, man. Let me tell you. All right, let me grab my. You think macro's clear? Oh, Emperor Throne. There is something called a what the hell is it called? Oh my God, this guy, the Action Lab. He did this experiment with these. There's these little microscopic, not a parasite, but a little bean, and they literally never die. I can't remember the name of them, but we lost some apparently on the moon. Apparently, something crashed, and I think they're called centigrades or something like that. But anyway, the question was, would they survive in an area like space in a vacuum? And he actually tested this out, and yes, they did. These things survive everywhere. They can survive anything, and they don't need air. They don't need water. They don't need anything. All right, let me see if I can fix this. Give me just a sec. All right. It looks like that fixed it, which is great. Okay. So I'm going to go silent here for a minute, guys. I'm about to cast out here. And so you guys, I'm going to drop the link to the particular gigamacro or gigapan that I'm going to be sifting through this morning. There you go. I'm going to probably take my audio out and just allow this to sort of play in the background while we do this, and just have a little morning fun, my version of fun anyway. If you guys need anything, just drop it in the chat. Let me drop also the Gigapan version of this as well. I also put all of the information, all these links in the description of this video as well. So there you go.
Bigger than ours, but not nearly as big as those huge teardrop eyes as the world.
Come to human interaction with the non-human intelligence, it is usually with the programmed androids, but there are the intelligences behind the androids, and this is what Jim has had firsthand conscious experience with what he calls the real, true aliens. And Jim, I wonder if you could go into the power, the energy that you have felt off of those, and something that I still feel is one of the most fascinating technology discussions that I've ever had, and that is your seeing the demonstration of them being able to extend themselves in only percentages.
Sure. And capping off or finishing off the worker beams, I believe that, as you said, Linda, that most abductees deal with that. And their creators are about anywhere from a foot to a foot and a half, 4 feet or more, instead of being 3 feet, close to 5 feet, in some cases taller. Now, all those little worker beams look the same. As far as what, as you mentioned, and as I said, what I call the true aliens or the true grays of that particular species, they are taller. Their heads are bigger than ours or bigger than normal, but they're not extra large as the little beams. Their eyes are bigger than ours, but not nearly as big as those huge teardrop eyes as the worker beams, which I've surmised those huge teardrop eyes in a lot of cases. I'm believing that it absorbs energy, and that's how it works or operates to power itself. Either be any kind of stimuli, be it light, be it movement. But with that being said, back to the grays, their skin is leather-like. Their mouths are thin. Their chins are you can distinguish the difference, and they are biological. They are alive.
And they don't wear uniforms, Jim?
No. They almost look as if they're naked.
Yeah. Okay.
And for George, for the best way I can describe it, as far as genitals are concerned, you don't see any genitals, either male nor female. There's nothing there but one gets, and I have throughout all the years, to the sex aspect of it, the feminine, and there's no doubt it was the feminine by the way she looked. And I say she. Form of emotions, and it's long-term thinking emotions. So they don't respond emotionally every few seconds as we do as human beings. So their emotions are long term. There seems to be a sense of humor. I've seen that from time to time. It's rather cynical. These are beings that do not like to answer questions. They do not respond to questions, and if they do, they usually answer ambiguously or they answer in riddles. Primarily, George, because when you think about it, if you've been working with human beings for thousands of years, abducting them on a nightly basis, on a global basis, by the millions, it's typical. Who are you? Where are you from? Why you're here? Da 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 da. And so they're callous and cold when it comes to that. But in my case, over the years, there were reward and punishment sessions for cooperating punishment, which I'll get into a little bit earlier, which evolved into some pretty cool stuff. And the reward sessions was where I was allowed to ask questions and get answers. But back to what Linda was saying, they don't go by name, at least the ones I've ever worked with in the last 19 years or more. They radiate energy. And whatever that level of energy is dictates rank, or dictates whether you're a superior or whether you have a higher management role. And I'm talking in particularly the Greys themselves, the true aliens. For example, a couple of them can be in the room and they radiate an energy that's always miserably uncomfortable. It's either a natural defense mechanism or it's enhanced technology, technically. But I've also surmised over the years that this energy feels queer, feels scary, feels weird, paralyzes you in a lot of cases due to the fact that literally it's an worldly energy. It's something not from this dimension and not from this planet, and the body just reacts to it not very well. But over time, human beings are resilient. We become conditioned to it, and I've learned to be around these guys, and it doesn't bother me anymore. But the first few seconds it does. But however, interestingly enough, if two are in the room and they're working on a situation, when I say room, on board a craft with people, and let's say something's getting out of hand or something's out of their control, or they're trying to get an experiment finished and it's just not working, right. You can feel the presence coming from outside the room of a superior or a higher ranking Gray, and that energy is more overwhelming. Your spine will straighten up, you'll have shortness of breath, your heartbeat becomes very rapid. When they come into the room and get closer to you, then you become paralyzed or totally paralyzed, and it's a sensation of complete fear of being overcome. They can lean over you and say, don't do that. Cooperate with this. And it's so overwhelmingly strong that you will do it. And after they leave, you get a sense of relief, and then you still feel the energy of the lower level in the supervisory role of the other beings that are there. From time to time, we would get appearances over the years to see how these experiments were going on from very, very, what I would say, high-ranking individuals, probably in what we would call in a general range, as a general, that type of rank.
And were they all experiments, Jim, or were there also teaching programs?
Definitely was teaching, but George, the first 6 years, I was not a cooperator, and particularly the first 18 months. I did everything in my power to disrupt anything possible there. I contribute a lot of my hate, loathing, focused anger on one of the main reasons why I maintained such an excellent conscious memory of everything that went on. I was able over time to shake off the screen imaging, meaning that where they would create a reality that wasn't such or lead you to believe it. But all of this was a learning process. But of course, they don't have any social skills. And little social skills. I was talking about earlier that this was gentle when they used to escort me from my bedroom and to on board through the window. Abruptly, in ladder 88, out of nowhere, I got pulled what I call the hard way to first way I'm describing to get you from point A to point B is the easy way, George, and the second way is the hard way. Now, the hard way is here's where a lot of the technology comes into play where you can see it. The hard way was I was laying in the bed. There was a loud whirling whipping sound and low RPMs inside my head. It got louder and louder and louder. There was a sensation in the pit of my stomach that worked its way to my upper torso. When it got there, my heart started racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It seemed like it. And then the sound got extremely loud. And then there was this absolute sensation of acceleration. Only you were going down, and now you're blacked out. You're conscious, but you can't. You're paralyzed, and you feel like you're going down a roller coaster only 100 times faster. I'm getting into the learning thing with this, believe it or not. And you black out completely, be it G-forces, be whatever it is. When I regained consciousness the first time, and this is the way it was for me throughout the whole 6 years, I was in this room. I had no clue where I was. I was sitting on a bench. In front of me was a table, and I called it a screen table. What that turned out to be was a teaching machine. It was complete artificial intelligence. In front of that table was a screen on the wall, on a wall, about 5 to 8 feet, I should say, in front of that table. That's where I found myself for year after year after year, week after week, month. Week, month after month, hundreds and hundreds of times, even within those first 6 years.
And were you up in a craft, Jim, or were you in a craft on land somewhere?
No doubt on board, no doubt out there, and I was
in space somewhere.
Deep space, I would say, definitely, because they can go from point A to point B, George, with no time passing. The technology is phenomenal.
Yeah, next hour we'll talk about that propulsion system. Go ahead.
Well, here I was the very first evening, not knowing who my captives were, and I was paralyzed except for my right hand was leaning on this table, and I could move my right forefinger, and when I would move it in any direction, it would be like an Etch-a-Sketch, like when we were kids. It would make a mark on the table, it would make a mark on the wall. I still don't know what's going on, and they didn't say hi. Would you like to learn about what you may be involved in 18 years from now? Would you like to go through these experiments? Would you like to learn this? None of that stuff. The very first thing, telepathic command that came out of them at first was, well, before it came out, the block letter A, our block letter A, came up on the screen, and then this symbol that was equivalent, or what I thought was an alien alphabet at the time, when I later learned it's phenomenal, which we can get into, came next to it. And what they said to do was to sketch the equivalent of the block letter A as in that symbol. That was it. And not knowing where I was there, why I was there, all this junk was happening earlier with the going through the window and everything. The next thing I know, I go through this gut-wrenching way of being transported, which I later learned that when a craft is in flight and they use the technology to pull you or hovering, that's the kind they use, which is gut-wrenching. The other, when they're on the ground, then they escort you, was the other way. And so, of course, I didn't want to do anything like that. And I did have my vocal ability, and I just screamed out, no, 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 and yelled and screamed, and who are you, and every cuss word under the sun, and why am I here? I didn't even know they were aliens at that time.
Were you the only human there at the time, Jim,
Absolutely.
or were there others? You were the one. Okay.
Yeah. Later on in the years, I've all this built up to around the 6th, 7th year, where I was actually walking around free. I was able to participate in mass abductions around the globe, where they picked up hundreds up to 1,000 people at the same time, and that's something we can talk about. Where I had freedom, but I knew how to behave. But in those first 6 years, all I wanted to do was kill them. On a lighter side, I used to yell out. If I was not paralyzed, I would squeeze your fat heads off your skinny little necks.
I take it they don't have a sense of humor, Jim.
They really don't, but over the years, I learned that they have a cynical one, and I'll get into that as this conversation progresses. It's what led to it, because there were some humorous moments, and I really lightened up after the first 6 years. I lightened up a lot, because the stuff that I was learning and the experiments that they were doing that I had no clue where they were going to go, and started going places with it, were phenomenal. And that's why the title, as you mentioned early in the show, that I went from resistor to cooperator. But it wasn't something that just happened overnight. And as Linda mentioned, I didn't want anything. I had no clue things like this had existed, and I didn't want anything to do with it.
Did they break you down, Jim? Is that what finally happened?
That's what one would say. But my take was, I saw that it was that because I named it an alien boot camp, those first 18 months to 6 years in particular, and I was resistant to that. So anything that was thrown at me, I did anything I could to throw a curve under the conditions of being mostly paralyzed. The way they got me to do, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The way they got me to do the letters at first was when the A came up on the board, and of course I wasn't going to sketch their stupid symbol. That's what I called it at that time, and every cuss word under the sun. The air pressure in the room would abruptly increase like a thump, and it would hurt my ears. And I'd scream out, no, because I figured out, okay, no, you ain't going to get me to do it with pain. And then they would increase the levels, one level at a time, until the pain was just intolerable. And I would sketch a few marks of that symbol, and boom, I would get to go back home. These sessions were based on if I cooperated, there was if I cooperated, there was no pain, and if I didn't, there was pain. But that's where I break it down in three parts. In those first 6 years, the sessions of reward and punishment started to evolved, and they started becoming fantastic.
And what do you mean by punishment? Because earlier you said it seemed like you liked it.
I hated it.
Right.
The punishment aspect of it, George. In other words, even when I say punishment, the fact that I would not cooperate in these experiments, the air pressure in the room would increase, which would cause pain. That's what I mean by punishment.
Okay, let's get Linda in, because Linda, we're going to lose you soon.
Right.
And we've got, go ahead.
I'm fascinated listening to Jim, and one of the areas that he and I have talked about so much that I think is one of the most interesting and may be an answer to some ghost sightings.
Oh, yeah.
And that is that we're dealing with intelligences that might have its home base in a parallel universe, and that they are actually being able to use technology to project themselves here, and that the main powerful ones don't have to be here physically in this universe at all times, but that they can literally project percentages of themselves. And Jim, could you explain that and how that might relate to the translucence of some ghost images?
Sure, and I think that's why you gravitated so much to the documentary, The Visitor Phenomena, that was made.
Right.
We put that together along with the book, by the way. I should tell your audience this on the website, which is because it's more graphic detail, jim-sparks.com or jim-sparks.com, whichever you prefer. And we did a special price for your audience, George. But to answer the question, they have a technology that literally there are other dimensions. They occupy the same space and they occupy the same time. They can be 95% in another dimension, and 95% of their working essence, I should say, in another dimension, and 5% of their essence in this dimension, where at anywhere from 1 to 5%, they would be invisible. If they are at 10% in this dimension to 30% or 40%, only it's because you can start seeing through them. You can look right through them as if they were a ghost or as if they were a spirit, and they take on more solid form through technology to move physical objects in our dimension.
Stay with us, Jim. Linda, I want to thank you for spending the hour with us to help jumpstart this.
Yeah, take care, you guys. God bless, Jim.
Jim, let's get into now the three major stages of this evolution that occurred with you. We've skimmed on some of it. But then the first phase, let's get into that.
Sure. Basically, as mentioned, easier way to see the picture.
Women
I break it down in
empowerment,
3
Miss
parts over the
Jean,
last 20 years, and
Shay,
we got into
Coco,
pretty much what it was like in those first 6-7 years, which seemed George
gave me a
there was
3.
no rhyme and
Miss
reason.
Faye Silver, how you doing?
It
Good morning,
completely
Typo.
disrupted my life. If it wasn't for the fact
Hey, it's
that
Jay. Hey,
I had a
Manny.
partnership
Hey,
with that
Shantia.
second business,
Hey,
and my partner
Mimi. How
pretty
you
much took
doing?
over, and some money saved
Brick
away.
girl, Haley.
I wouldn't have made it
How
through
you
those
doing?
first 6 years.
Janie
And how
Capricorn.
often was this happening to you?
How you
It was
doing?
just phenomenally
Nicole,
awful.
how you doing?
It was just
Friend Jake,
mind-bogglingly
how you
awful.
doing? And still
It would happen
standing.
2, 3
How are you
times a week,
doing?
sometimes 4 times a week,
Um,
for several weeks in a row, week after week, month after month.
let's
And even
see.
though
Hey
in
there,
your
Mr.
dreams,
Conspiracy
you remembered
Theorist.
this
If you
a
don't
couple
mind, can you
times a
share
week, do
this
you think
live
it might
out,
have been
please
occurring then
and thank
more?
you.
You just didn't remember it?
It could
Goldilocks,
have,
good morning.
because as I mentioned earlier in the
Miss
show,
Yolanda, good morning.
that the physical memory is taken away from people because
Right.
almost by your words that we would tend to get in our own way, particularly when there's a message involved. Well, this stuff did evolve into something pretty spectacular, but to appreciate it, and the way I break it down is that it was in that punishment and reward era. So, but the punishment and reward started evolving into being ignored in the second set of 7 years for punishment, and the reward would be explain knowledge and agenda. In the last 6-7 years, it's the punishment no longer exist because the interaction has evolved to the point of where now there's a global agenda, and it's almost at the point of critical mass. But to get there, the steps that one went through, and particularly in my case, as I mentioned earlier, I was learned to convert, having no clue, convert block letters into these symbols. Now, not only was it just A, but it was B, it was C, and it went on with no Q's or Z's. Then that's several months of that. Now, during the course of all of this, again, this stuff's going to sound scary, but it evolved. There wasn't almost any session where they wouldn't extract semen. There was almost no sessions where they would do emotional experiments to get your reaction to it. And it always was, again, on that same level of being learned these letters. But what was happening to me was I was seeing a picture of, Jim, the more you resist, the longer you stay here, the more you cooperate, then you get to leave sooner. As far as my reality went in my normal life, I dropped 35, 40 pounds, and I'm not a big person. At that time, I was around 170 pounds.
No, that's too much. It's called the ET diet, Jim, and it's not a good one, huh?
No, unless you really wanted to lose that weight, it'd be great, right?
Yeah.
And of course, during the course of that, my hygiene went to pot. My hair grew out. I didn't shave. I wasn't bathing. I would try to get away, meaning that I would get in my car and I'd drive into the downtown of a major city, and I'd check out a hotel room. Again, luckily I had a buffer of money at that time, and I would be in the middle of a hotel room, surrounded by all these other rooms and floors, thinking they couldn't get me. They'd abduct me. I'd drive from state to state, and it even got to the point where I even abandoned my home. At that time, it was in Texas, and moved down to Florida. But I woke up one day, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and said, "You know something, Jim? There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to stop them. It's going to happen wherever this thing is going to go." And I immediately changed. I started eating again, and I, got myself together. And
you stopped fighting it.
I stopped fighting it. As a matter of fact, you couldn't have worded it better. But now the reward sessions, when I started having that attitude in the 4th, 5th, and 6th years, started becoming fascinating. I started accepting the rewards instead of resisting them, because I used to consider myself, I'm this laboratory mouse, I'm this laboratory rat, and I'm not going to cooperate with you. I'm going to bite you whenever I can.
Yeah.
But however, as I started to cooperate, the rewards were I started learning. For example, first they always offered euphoria. They bathed you in extreme euphoria like you've never felt. And it's akin to like a sexual energy that you're bathed in when you cooperate. And it's something that we're all adults here. It's we all know what a climactic feeling is. And you could maintain that climactic feeling for minutes into 10 minutes into 15 minutes into 20 minutes. Something like that is pretty hard to resist. I was resistant to it at first, but over time, I let them dabble with me when I cooperated. Then the reward sessions would go into getting to, if I cooperated again and I did well and I was learning fast, then I got to tinker with gizmos. What I mean by gizmos was, as I mentioned earlier, all their technology is thought activated. So there's an interaction evolving here into a trust form. Now, still, I maintained being paralyzed. They still didn't let me go. And I went to a lot of graphic detail when I wrote the book. And I wrote the book as if it was happening to you. And what would you do? So here's this normal guy, and what would you do? And this is what I did. And I methodically wrote it that way so one can get a real picture and a feel for what it's like to interact with these beings. Now, some of the reward sessions with the gizmos were pretty cool. For example, you could move objects with your mind. And none of that even came easy. It was an exercise. They put something like a marble on the table, and telepathically told to think about rolling the marble in whatever direction you want it to go, and that's what it'll do.
Can you do that now
Myself
without them?
personally, no, not without it being aided by them. George, like a bigger, 3 times the size the cube over from end to end. Now I had to focus a lot harder. I knew I was being aided by them, and the thing would flip over. And then the third object was something akin to a triangle, but it looked like a pyramid. And then I was told to flip it from end to end, which took a lot more concentration. So it was the little weak thoughts in my mind that were picked up by their technology that activated a machine that would make the stuff happen. But they were very, very cautious with this stuff. They made sure they were always around. They were always on top of me. And so now these reward sessions started to evolve into something that had practical meaning and deeper meaning and understanding. But it was a slow process. I still wasn't seeing the picture. But what started changing things, and I'm still in that first third, was the fact that one particular session, they presented 50 pages of text in normal English block lettering, and it was a story about a friend of mine. His name was Jerry, from birth, where he was born, so on and so forth, page after page. And I'm thinking, why are they having me read this? It meant nothing to me, George. And it got to the point where he was an adult, and then it went into the future. Now it started getting my attention. And so when the 50 pages of text were done,